The first light of dawn spilled like molten gold across the cobblestone streets, touching rooftops and chimneys with fleeting warmth before vanishing behind a heavy mist. In that fragile moment, she opened her eyes, and the world felt both achingly familiar and entirely strange. Her name was no longer certain, nor the century in which she stood. Yet the ache in her chest, a phantom weight of countless losses, remained stubbornly real. She rose from the narrow bed in the attic room of an inn that smelled of damp, wood and candle smoke, her fingers brushing over the carved patterns in the oak dresser, as if seeking comfort in shapes she had drawn 100 times in other lives. Outside, the town stirred, horses clattering along stone streets, merchants shouting, children laughing, but she felt detached. A ghost tethered only to fragments of memory. A lover's whispered promise in a summer garden. A dagger thrust into a shadowed hallway. A farewell shouted across a bridge beneath a thunderstorm. Every century she awoke like this, scattered, incomplete. A puzzle missing pieces that seemed to dissolve the moment she grasped them. And always there was the darkness, an intangible, creeping presence that watched, patient and deliberate. It bore no form she could name, but it carried the weight of all the grief she had endured, all the love she had lost. Sometimes she felt it in the flutter of her pulse, sometimes in the tremor of her breath, but it was always there, a reminder that immortality came with a cost far greater than any mortal could understand. As she wandered the narrow streets, her senses sharpened to the smallest detail, the Thames of iron in the water trough, the song of a sparrow hidden in the eaves, the soft rustle of silk skirts along cobblestones. In a market square, she paused before a mirror shop. The glass was dusty, warped, but as she peered in, the reflection showed her a woman she half recognized, pale, with eyes like storm clouds and hair like burnished copper, as though every life she had lived had pooled into this single moment. The fragments came to her slowly like scattered seeds taking root. A candlelit ballroom from centuries ago, laughter echoing against gilded walls. A battlefield soaked in blood, and her own hands trembling as she tried to save someone she loved. A quiet library where she had hidden among dusty tomes, reading lines of poetry she had already written in lives before this one. Each memory was a shard of glass, sharp and beautiful, cutting into her understanding of who she was and who she had become. But the darkness was never far. It prowled the edges of her perception, whispering in voices that were hers but not hers, calling her to mistakes she had already made. And always it waited for the moment she forgot herself entirely, when she might fall into its grasp as effortlessly as a leaf drifting into a river's current. She had learned over lifetimes to sense its approach, to watch the flicker of shadow in candlelight, the unnatural chill in the air, the sudden stillness of birds in the square. Her first confrontation came in the form of a young man who appeared as though conjured from memory. His eyes were keen and searching, a reflection of all the love she had lost and all the betrayal she had endured. "You don't remember me," he said, his voice carrying both warmth and accusation. "But I have always remembered you," she recoiled, instinct and instinctive fear warring with curiosity. bar the fragments of memory. His smile under cherry blossoms, the softness of his hand in hers on a rainy night, pulled her forward, despite the warning thrumming in her chest. He offered her a locket, tarnished and warm, and inside, a tiny portrait of herself from another century. It was a gift, a tether, and a challenge to reclaim what she had lost without surrendering herself to the shadow that followed her across time. The days passed like threads of silver and smoke. She retraced her footsteps through streets she did not recognize, yet remembered. She discovered letters in an abandoned house, scribbled in her own hand, but in a language of emotion more than words. A melody hummed by a street musician that resonated with the echo of a song she had once composed. A rose, frozen in a fountain that opened under her touch, as though spring itself remembered her touch. And then the darkness struck, subtle at first, a flicker of shadow, a shiver in the air, a sense of being watched. By night, she found it in the alleyways, looming over her reflections in puddles, whispering her name with the intimate knowledge of 1,000 lives. She realized it hunted not merely to destroy, but to claim what she carried in her very soul. The accumulated experience of centuries, the ache and beauty of countless loves, the wisdom and sorrow of endless rebirth. In the climax, she confronted it in a ruined cathedral where moonlight sliced through collapsed arches. The darkness coalesced into a shape, a mirror of herself, twisted and incomplete, whispering the culmination of every regret. "You cannot escape me," it hissed. "Every life you live belongs to me." She stood tall, heart hammering, mind a swirl of fragmented memories. But she had learned to wield the weight of her centuries, to summon courage from despair. "I am more than what you seek," she said, voice echoing against the ruined stone. "I am every choice I have made, every love I have held, every life I have lived, and you will not take me." Light flared from her, fragile yet unyielding, a pulse born from every life, every sorrow, every joy. The darkness recoiled, and for the first time in centuries, she felt the fleeting taste of freedom. The city seemed to exhale around her, the wind carrying away shadows, leaving streets glimmering with the silver residue of moonlight and memory. Yet, as she drifted into sleep that night, she sensed a familiar tingle, the beginning of another century, another dawn. Her eyes would open again, her memory fragmented, and the world would demand she start anew. But now she faced it with strength, carrying the weight of all she had been, ready to meet the darkness once more, wiser, braver, and unbroken. And as the first light crept over the rooftops, the city shimmered in quiet promise, echoing the eternal rhythm of her immortal life. Wake, remember, survive, and awaken again.